All right, our next reader is someone you all know and love, Randall Brown. Randall teaches here at Rosemont College in the Creative Writing Program. He's the author of the award-winning collection Mad to Live. His essay on very short fiction appears in the Rose Medal Press Field Guide to Writing Flash Fiction, and he appears in the Norton Anthology of Hint Fiction, among, like, I don't know, 1,000 other places, just saying. He blogs regularly at flashfiction.net and is the founder and managing editor of Matter Press and its Journal of Compressed Creative Arts. Welcome, Randall.
My son dared me to have entrance music. I like to make fun of the invisibility of flash fiction writers by pretending that rock stars are perfection around the world.
And now, coming up to read, we have Randall!
It's supposed to be louder than that, though. Like I said. That works perfectly. So this first piece has a chorus that I hope works. It's called Chorus. They flooded the valley and made the lake, left the houses intact, not knowing, hidden in the cellar, tied to the supporting pole as if to the mast, was my grandfather. They didn't know what he said until it bubbled to the surface amid the motorboats, lake houses, water skiers, jet skis, until it died under that endless roar. In the walls of my father's apartment, they discovered nothing but millions of pellet holes. Him they found wandering in the back parking lot. No one was there, they told him, but he didn't believe them. He saw disembodiment, limbs afloat, his shotgun tapping like a cane, sounding like a song. He raised it. There was nothing else they could do. Every night, starting at 7, my son cried. He said he could not live with knowing he'd awake one day to death, with not knowing what happens during sleep. I told him he wasn't missing much. One night, we stayed up all night waiting. That night, the night could barely be heard, like a faraway past. Near dawn, they turned on all the sprinklers. Now I know, he said. Each day after the stroke, fewer words become available for speech. Finally, only stroke remains. An image of a boat, its wake like time, its prow pointed toward the end of the world. As the boat makes its soundless way forward, I feel a tiny damp hand stroking my cheek. Hear my 7-year-old humming a tiny song through that endless roar, beyond that nothing else they could do. Now I know, he says, the world gets washed. This just has, I've been working with titles that work better as last lines than titles. So I did this in the summer, so I have the title for you at the end also. Just to be different. So this is called So She Just Left. She found it.
It's a comedy.
She found a tooth in her burger, said nothing. She thought of making a joke about a smile, a burger saying cheese. She did. She sat against the booth, heard her brother's voice tell her not to slouch. The man kept talking about leveraged bonds. Suddenly silence, and she almost jumped. He had asked her something of herself. She made up a story about the tooth, how she carried it with her, a baby tooth, hers, one the tooth fairy left behind. He asked to see it, and she knew she'd be revealed then. He'd examine it and say, rat. It's only how much. The brilliance of what I'm up to. It's bad every year. My hairdresser tells me he won't swallow, then asks if I do, even though he also does my wife's hair. Everything to me is a test of my tolerance. He's talking about the change of management at the coffee cafe, about maybe writing a letter, about their taking away his refills and long waits for lattes. He says that the baristas frolic too much. I think that's a funny notion. He calls me milk, says I should at least go outside once or twice a week. I blame it on pollen. Yes, I'd love to go to the movie, the restaurant, somersault in the street, but you know, the pollen. Yes, the hairdresser says, everyone tells me it's bad this year. Is this it? In the back of a station wagon, he spent a childhood, beltless and bumping. He leapt from stairs, disappeared into orange shag, never got a haircut, sat on a car roof, Mary Poppins and Herbie flickering far from somewhere. Casey Kasem counted down endlessly, and once, for certain, he'd heard his name as a long-distance dedication. John Stewart sang Gold for him, and he heard singers in the passenger seat, hoarse and dreaming of elsewhere. His heart held weakness since birth. He once dreamed of enchiladas before he knew they existed. When he had earaches and his mom rocked him on the green lazy boy, she told him something happened to lonely kids when they grew into people. Plumbing. She wants to see the bucket of sludge from the upstairs sink. Dazzling, she says. She offers him coffee from a machine, explains each sound. The grinding of the beans, the tamping of the grounds, the pre-brewing, brewing, bubbling of steam to make foam. He still holds the wire snake, unsure of its place, of lines to be crossed. She says there's a lilt about him, and the only thing that comes to mind is a song from a black and white movie. She says her husband hates the machine, its noise and bulkiness. She has the coffee waiting for him after he showers. The plumber takes his own taste, understands now the origin of black sludge in the bathroom sink. Is it love that makes him pour each cup into the drain, or something altogether else? And the last one. Moments later. He shoved the branch between the gates of Eden, leaning on it with all his newfound weight, as if the gates could be unframed. He pushed harder until the stick snapped like bones. Serpents, he cried out. It's lost, she said. He had written a poem. Maybe Orange and Oriole had rhyming mates then. A poem written in a world full of unborn desire. It must have been a very Eastern poem, describing the world as it is rather than what it might mean. He'd written it upon a leaf that held fast to the tree and could not fall. Forget it, he said. He tossed the stick to the ground. It held something, she said. I said, forget it, let's go. He pulled at her, bone of his bones, flesh of his flesh. In the distance, a meteor scorched the sky, left silence, man and woman, a world they had no name for. Thank you.